Hello and welcome to this continuing live code series on creating a website from scratch with Python, Django, and Wagtail CMS. We'll be continuing today with the Western Friend website, porting it over from Drupal to Django and Wagtail CMS. And we're focused in on the community directory. In the previous episode, we were able to port the page over to using a StreamField and created a custom StreamField called a card row, which is basically a bootstrap row consisting of an arbitrary number of bootstrap cards. Might want to set a limit of this 3 or 4, but then you can create multiple rows, which is what we did in this case. And the session today will be working on getting the community resources row or section of the page ported over to a more generic form so that we can use this card row again. So looking back here again, we've got 2 card rows. Really quickly overview is this is the page title. Everything else from here to here is a stream field. A header, paragraph text, a custom card element that we made, giving the editor the ability to add a picture, a title, some text, and a call to action link. This is the card row repeated twice. The first row has only 2 cards, so Bootstrap just dynamically sizes it to 2 columns, taking up half width. The second row has 3 cards, so again Bootstrap is handling the layout for us there. This row is hard-coded into the template. So let's hop over there real quick. Community templates, community page. Essentially what we have here is, again, page title. It's coming straight from the page when we go to edit. The title is just a field. Then we have page body, which is actually a stream field. If we edit this page, the body field, and if you look at these red down arrows delineate the fields, the primary fields. Everything inside of this body is our stream field elements, and we have just a few stream field elements to select from right now. So this is one of the powerful aspects of doing web development with Wagtail. I think other CMSs like WordPress are heading this direction as well, where you decompose your page into kind of archetypes of content. It could be a PDF viewer or a video rendering or a component like Bootstrap, and even front-end frameworks like Vue, React. Those are all headed in this sort of component-oriented architecture as well. So yeah, this whole section of the page again can be expressed just with a few lines of code, and including the blocks actually renders the subtemplates. We'll see that in a moment. I think we might have to get into that code where it's replacing. Let me double check. Yeah, it's really a lot of markup here just for 2 cards, which will roll into the reusable component. So this online worship card is hard-coded into the template, so that if the editor wanted to change this text, they couldn't. They'd have to have basically somebody who can do code to change these. And then this is a sort of a kludgy thing. I don't want to kind of explain too much. It worked, and it was clever, and it was within the normal extent of what Wagtail provides. But yeah, it's just not very elegant. So I'm going to actually make it a little bit more redundant today. So first thing, let's hop over to the community page model. So we got the community templates here, community model here, right here for community page, and it's inheriting from Wagtail page. I'm finding a lot of getting a lot of mileage, I should say, inheriting from Wagtail page, trying to do that as much as possible. And here's our stream field. Essentially what you tell the stream field is like, what the field name is, and then what are the sort of options that can be rendered here. Heading, paragraph, image, card, card row, and a card row has a list block. I should actually, well, we're using Python black to handle code indentation here, but let me see if this might be a little more readable. If I do something like this. Let's see, actually. It's not helping it. Actually, if I do this, I know what I can do. There we go. I think my IDE will now indent it at one level. There we go. Yeah, so this list block takes an arbitrary number of these kind of what are structure blocks. They have a couple of fields inside of them, and each of them have a template. So yeah, that's the card row there. Save that. It's a little bit of an improvement. And this body stream field is nullable. Now here's sort of where we're getting into kludgy territory. These online worship and sort of Quaker directory resources are, I haven't added any content, but they're in this bucket called, what do we put those in? Community resources, I believe. Yeah, so they're community resource, and they have two types. Where do we find those community resource type choices? They could be online worship or community directory. What we're going to do is separate those out into two different tables, essentially. So we're going to have an index page for each of those instead of having a generic community resource type. I like the idea of having them combined, and it seems natural that you would differentiate them in such a way. But what that ended up creating was this, where I have the community resource index page that's going to list them. Let me see if I add a couple if it'll help. Make this a little less abstract. Let's see. For one, this body has a consistent structure, like that we would most likely want to break out into fields, because each of these are displaying in a consistent way. So that's what content management systems do, is they help you break your content into more or less sort of rigid structures so that you can render it. You have control over the rendering. So now if we view live, oops, anyway. Community, I haven't added the library content. So now we see it rendered here. And that's all an index page does, is just renders a list of content of a particular type. In order to get this to work, I used an inbuilt feature of Wagtail called a Reusable page mix-in. It inherits from a page model, but gives you the options to come like defining these routes, sort of like a well, what's the name of that? Flask. Gives you a decorator here and a regex, which is not elegant. Anyway, then I use that capture group to get a parameter that is used in a query and renders an exception or a template with some results. Not a whole lot of lines of code, not hard to grok on reading through very carefully, but certainly took me a little bit to realize it. But since there's only one instance of this community resource index page, I'm having to rely on this URL parameter here. One possible direction I could go with the community resource index page would be to specify the resource type to render on the page as a field instead of a URL argument. That could lead to some cases where multiple instances of community resource index pages are created selecting the same resource type, but the idea is that on this grid you'll only select you'll select the card which is a page that links to this page. So there's choices to be made. I'm kind of processing this a little bit. I believe I've already made up my mind, but I'm just kind of thinking it through a little bit carefully, because what we've done here with the contacts is we originally had them into one bucket, just like we have with these resources, and you would add a contact type. And then we separated out. So now, like the meeting type contacts, they are in one bucket, and you have this filtering interface. But people, they're just people, and organizations are still in their own bucket. So what I'm thinking is that this resources will be a pop-out menu, and you'll add online worship resources or community directory resources, and there'll be a little bit of setup, creating a couple index pages, but those index pages will be limited to one instance, and they'll be specific to a model type. So instead of having a generic community resource, let's go ahead and do this. We will have online worship. Now, online worship, it looks like it has a description, a website, and times of worship. Doesn't need a resource type field now because it is its own resource type. So we'll just clean this up a little bit. And it can be added. Now here's the tricky part. I want to have a very clean content architecture. So I'm deprecating this community resource index page. We will need an online worship index page, and the content should be organized in such a way, as in my opinion at least, and I think I could convince Mary that this is a good way. It should be organized hierarchically, and people should be organized underneath the people index page. So if you're not familiar with Wagtail, everything sort of by default is a page. That's not a hard rule. You can actually just define any kind of Django model, and it's very flexible in that regard. But pages are the sort of main way you design content with Wagtail. They are hierarchical. So you have a welcome page. This is sort of our root page for the whole site. So if I go here and I just say view live, this is the root of our website. Underneath the welcome page, you can see a couple of other pages here. And they roughly correspond to these navigation menu links, but there's no really requirement there. But we're working in the community section, so let's go ahead and head over there. Now you can already see my content is getting a little bit mixed up here, which is what I believe I want to prevent. And going forward, I have right below the community page, I have sort of people visible here, organizations, like index pages, organizations, meetings, another index page. So it's just like a mixed bag of content. So it's like putting all the silverware in one drawer and not having any partitions or anything. So in the rest of this session, I'm getting clarity now that this is what I want to improve. I want to have a stricter content hierarchy with dedicated index pages relating to resource types. And those resource types can only be added under their corresponding index page. Likewise, I will probably, just while I'm in that flow, create a people index page, organizations index page, and meetings index page. This is where it gets a little bit fuzzy because meetings, or I could call them groups or something more generic. Yeah, it's hard to fit the world into a hierarchy of concepts. But let's see how far we get in this session. And I meet with Mary on Wednesday, so she can kind of sanity check me. But I did show her the progress so far on this, having split out these contacts into different types. I think she said it was effectively more, getting more sophisticated and more refined. I can't remember what she said, but something to that extent. So we've got this online worship page. And there's another problem I have with these models is if I go to delete a whole model, I don't know how to migrate that to delete a table. So let me find a good example of an index page I've done. Let's see, what did we do? Magazine index page is a good one. Where I essentially change the page context. Just making sure I didn't do it as a view. Wagtail gives you a lot of sort of bang for your buck here. It goes, if you follow the conventions, and similarly with Django and other frameworks, if you follow conventions, they do a lot of the heavy lifting for you behind the scenes. So Wagtail will give us routes and views, and all we have to do is define these models. See, here's a decent one. It's just pretty simple. I'll just go ahead and grab this. Alright. So, where are we at? I guess I don't know what a good convention is in terms of code organization. If you define the index page first and then I guess this child and then the index page, because they're both going to refer to each other. So the index page can have online worship. Darn it. We can have one instance of that. We've been making room for intro text. We're not using it on the Drupal site, but for consistency, I'll have the intro text field so that it can add a title, intro, and then it'll basically iterate over all of the subpage content. Or specifically, there will be I might not even have to use the context here. Let me just think about this for a second. Because the Wagtail gives me an iterable of the children. That I can do right in a template, and then I would include the sort of the template inclusion tag, which is essentially this code. I'll copy and paste it. I think it's already split out into its own template even, so yeah, we'll take a look at that. We'll get there pretty quick, I believe. So online worship index page relates to online worship. Online worship can be added only of a child of community online worship index page. So no longer community resources index page. Oh, darn it. Come on. And there's no children of these. Online worship are flat. I'll leave this code in place. But I need to tell the community page we can now add the online worship index. No. This one. So with that said and done, I believe we're ready for a migration. Plural. Make migrations. Actually migrate the collection. Run the server again. We'll hop over into, so another thing I should point out, at least to my knowledge, I don't know how to get the little wagtail icon in the lower right hand corner of non-page models. This is a sort of quasi-page, but if you look at something like this, the community page, they all have this little handy way of getting around back to the Wagtail Admin for only users with the right privilege, so that's a nice thing we'll be getting back with the approach we're taking. So now we go to, for example, in the hierarchy, if I hop over to the community page and I add a child page, underneath the community page currently I can add directly meetings, organizations, and people, so we're going to fix that later, but not necessarily today, it's not super urgent. But online worship index page, our new model here, so let's just call it online worship. And this is these are some generic intro text, publish that. Now, if we view that live, we don't have a template, so let's take a look. Just grab the template to name, follow convention, and actually, I should make this explicit here. This is going to seem like a little bit of redundancy, but you just do it right here. This helps people new to the project to find, kind of connect the dots, basically. So there's not so much magic going on. Alright, so what are we going to do here? It's really... It's similar to this, at least. Let me... So first thing, now we don't have to have this hard-coded. So the pages all have titles. Has intro text, and I believe it was rich text field. So we're going to pass it into that filter, and then we're going to maybe comment all this out for a second. Let's fix the indentation. Still didn't get fixed. Alright, one moment. My chair is a little bit squeaky, so if I adjust, it's probably making an annoying sound on the microphone. Alright, cool. So now we got a template with some comment code. Let's see if this looks good. So yeah, essentially now we're pulling data. I've got the little wagtail back. I can head to this page, and we got our title and intro displaying. Looking good. Let's go ahead and commit and migrate this. So I'll actually cut that. Not migrate, commit this template in the model migration. So what did we do here? That's a little bit of linting. More or less, we added online worship and online worship index page. So now migration. Cool. All right, so I don't know if it's be capitalized. It's nothing official or formal or whatever. In any case, there we are. I just was thinking in terms of like a page title, I guess, and the data model. Okay, now we're going to bring this gobbledygook back, but we're going to make it cleaner. And we're going to do that get child first page, get children. Looks. Now they're using context here. Because they want to give it a name, context, and filter it, but we don't have to worry about that because of the sort of strict content hierarchy. So essentially it's going to be for subpage and self get children. So for resource and self, for online worship, self get to children. Again, this comes out of the Wagtail page model. And now let me think. Did I register that with the backend? Can I add those resources? If I go to the community page, resources, no, dang it. I add a child here. Now it knows we're in online worship. There we go. Okay, cool. So just I'm gonna take one moment and delete that previous one so I don't get myself all confused. It's easy to do. I confuse easily. I'm not ashamed of that. Okay, so back here. So now we have this index page. Add a child page. We'll add that bin moment again. Oh, dang, I got two descriptions here. It's, I guess, pretty easy mistake. So this is the diff. Let's go back over here. There we go. Now, I believe this won't take a migration because all I'm doing is modifying the Wagtail admin at this point. There we go. No need. And so the description is this. And if you ever have a chance and you're in Northern California or Southern California, well, wait a minute. It seemed kind of southern to me, but they call it northern because it's north of Los Angeles, I guess. If you have a chance though to visit Ben Lomond, it's a really beautiful place. Because I lived in Northern California and we had to drive like 6 hours south. And I wasn't that far north of Sacramento. I was like 3 hours and 2 hours north of Sacramento. But anyway. It's confusing. California's a huge place. Copy link address. And let's grab this. Because we have the field name there. And I should actually display that in the template, but let's go ahead and publish that. We'll get to it, actually. Now that I recall. Let's see if I view that live, it's not going to work. I may or may not create a template for this. I don't know. I've got a few too many tabs open. This is the pull request. We'll come to that later. Alright, so now we're good to go. So we're going to check if it has a resource website. And then what were we doing here? I'm more or less going to actually follow. Yeah, I see the title links to it. Oh man. Well, that's something a little bit different. I'm going to deviate from that a little bit for simplicity of the data model. And this field is actually required. No, it's not. Should it be? I believe it should. If you want to have an online worship, you got to have a website for that. I will make it required. Dang it. Oh, I don't like doing that. Alright, leave it alone. That means our template has to be a little bit more complex. Essentially, we have to have two cases here. When it does have a website and then when it doesn't have a website. I don't know what the point of not having a website is, but okay. Maybe they'll, you know what, I know it. I can think of there's some cases there. Sometimes meetings will meet like via Skype. There's other ones that we're using now, Zoom, stuff like that. So maybe they'll have like, in the description, you'll have a Zoom address. Alright, cool, I'm down with that. So, good that I was lazy and didn't want to run this migration. I think this was times of worship. Rich text, and I would like this to be in a well. Let's give ourselves some breathing room. Very good, very good. So the key difference here is the title. Everything else is the same. But the thing is, these classes are applied. And this anchor is wrapping the whole card, so there's a click, a link. I don't know if I can have any less redundancy here. I think that's just the way it's got to be. Let's take a look at it real quick, see if that's gonna work. Page gets shown, so this I think should just work now. Whoops, wrong way. So if I hit Alt left, no. Close that. If I view this live, I need to run. All right. Hey, we got something. Oh yeah, and this is no longer a resource. So what is this? No. No. I forgot how to do the multi-cursor. That works. But it's not a link, so something's up. You know, I think this is actually the deal now. Is this is a kind of caveat. Specific to any of these that are not one of the main properties of the Wagtail page model. So the website, description, times of worship, they're all part of the child model. Then they need to be prefixed with specific. But if it's title, which comes from the Wagtail model, then you don't use specific, some sort of implementation leaking into the abstraction. But anyways, that fixed it. And in multi-cursor support in VS Code, it's done with Control D. You just select one phrase or whatever and hit Control D to highlight the other ones. So that's handy. I have to look it up every once in a while. Alright, so now this does have yes, it does have a website, so what's up with that? Yeah, I didn't do this. So you can see the difference here now when I refresh. So right now it's a div. If I look at the code, everything's wrapped in a div. But if I refresh, F5, did I say that? Yes, F5. This needs to be, didn't quite get my multi-cursor good. see if we're getting into that. Sure enough. Oh, maybe it's just simulating touch. Yeah, there it is, it's linkable. Alright, so it was working fine. Yeah, so there we are at Quaker Center. This is a WordPress website. Really great place, really peaceful, quiet, a lot of activities. WordPress is really great CMS, especially for small to medium websites where you don't want to do a lot of maintenance and coding and stuff like that. Cool, and it's kind of growing more as a general purpose content management system as well. But you have to write PHP, and that's one of the decisions we made with Western Friend. We realized with the Drupal, we'd coming out of WordPress to Drupal, and then we were thinking about the Drupal 7 to 8 transition, and we were like, well, we were probably going to have to write some custom code here, because we were bumping up against certain things that you do through Drupal UI, like page layout and views and things like that. So the deal was, well, I want to write basically PHP, and I don't write PHP at my work, and I do a lot more with Python. And if we would have gone that route, PHP certainly has some mature frameworks like Laravel, and Drupal is now using one. Can't recall, but in any case, yeah, I didn't really want to spend a lot of time there. So we thought, let's try Django and Wagtail. Alright, so there's our online worship index page. Now the cool thing is I can come to the community, and I'm going to mock up this community website with actual content that you see here, so we can start getting a feel for that. So we'll edit this, go to Wagtail Admin. Actually, sorry, just edit the page in place. So we do have this intro text, here, and I'll skip the upcoming events for just a moment, but I do have an events page. So essentially we have these yearly meetings. Which are big regional gatherings. Here. Let's see if I've added another one. I've only got one. So let's go and delete this. I will delete this card row for the moment, and I'll save the page. I'll view it live, clean up a couple of these tabs. So now we added just one column here, Pacific Yearly Meeting, but that's cool. Let's just add a couple more real quick. I think it's just yearlymeeting.org. What are they using? Years in WordPress also. It's good stuff. And then another HTTP. Yes. Quakers are not Luddites necessarily, but like any small sort of grassroots community, it's tricky to get people to take care of the technology. think this one's actually using Plone. What's a telltale of that? Sites. If we look at the login page. Well, this is maybe a telltale of that. This stuff. Okay. Looking for a new kind of footer. 12, what do we got? I'm just curious. Smallest side. Page now. This could even be Drupal. Yeah, that's right. From the looks of it. So yeah, a little bit of mixed bag of CMSs. I think. Can't remember what it is. What organization uses. This is just in need of some TLC. They got the HTTPS. Cool beans. All right, we got it. We got it. I'm trying to harsh on their mellow or anything. I mean, we're all in various states of like maintaining stuff. This is not, we're not doing the most elegant work here. Just bootstrap stuff. So yeah, in any case. Yeah. So if we go back here, edit the community page. Now I'll just fill out that grid real quick with the other two yearly meetings. Choose a page. This is and then if I type yearly, it'll filter down for us in Mountain yearly meeting. And yearly. Thank you for a second. Yeah. Now it's a little bit redundant to have this text when the page description actually has text, but the reason for that was so the editor has the choice. I already had this one copied. Which one? Damn it. Specific, yeah. To have different text on each of the pages. And it makes this card row just really generic. So now we'll view the community page. Here. Now you can see the 3-row, and they link to the appropriate Wagtail page. We're going to repeat that here now. We've got online worship index. So let's go ahead and add. We'll edit this page. I think we're already there. We'll add another card row right after this card row. It's not super obvious until you hover over it. For the first row, we will choose the online worship page. So now you can see our content is starting to fill out. Now if I come back to the community directory, I can just delete that. Block. So it's not hard-coded there anymore. Boom. That's good clean up. So we'll repeat that for the online direct. No, sorry, that actually was the online directory. Dang it. No, I was right. Confused myself again. The online directories, we'll do that next. Looking good. So let's commit these changes. render. Clean up. Boom, there we are. I'll repeat this page, repeat this process. This one, the case, I can't think of the case being so strong for having a nullable field. But for consistency, I'll leave it alone. I don't have a strong case either way. Aside that it makes our template a little bit extra verbose, or a little bit of redundancy there. Alright, so we'll migrate these in. I believe it's good to go. Oh, one more thing, but alright, I have to manage that. Very cool. Let's go and commit those. So this is just a copy and paste also. In the future, I hope to make these more refined. Because if I change the index page, you know, for these online workshops, like the styling, or we switch away from cards, I think that change should be reflected all the other index pages that you have a similar purpose. But it's not going to be for the time being. And it does have some specific semantics, and it's necessary though because there's some specific differences. We don't have times of worship. Well, I just realized putting those times of worship in a well was a little bit redundant, or didn't work. Now what we have instead of online worship, we have these. I don't have to now worry about the specific. It'll handle it for me because the specific's already there. Thank you. Copy and paste. We'll go to the community section of the site. How do I get to? I just want to add a child page, I suppose. Community directories. And this is a little bit, I just realized, a little bit confusing. Because we have the sort of the Western Friend directory, which is slightly different than the notion of a general purpose community directory outside of Western Friend. Hopefully it won't be too confusing. So that's working, and we don't have any child content yet. But if I add a child page now, it knows it's a community directory child page. So we'll do this one. We got it there. Let me clean up while it's on my mind. Those classes, I don't think they helped. Although, I just realized we don't have the field label. Let me get the markup here real quick. I just have to look this up. Well, you're not supposed to use W3 fools. I don't know, it's not so bad. I'm not that hardcore opposed to it. So it's a DL, DD, DT. Well, let's just do a This will leave hard-coded in the template because essentially it's the label for this field, and that's not going to change, or should rarely change. I believe this was just working, wasn't it? Yeah. So good, we can take the hard-coded out of that. Community. So we're done with this. Community page doesn't need the hard-coded row anymore. Look at that. Look at that. So we hop over here to community page. Now the row's gone. We'll edit it. And go to, there's our yearlies. Choose page. Or is it? Community directories. Yeah, of course not. I don't know if I should add these individual templates. I might be able to override Wagtail to not display that message or something along those lines. What was I doing? Damn it. I know what I was doing. Just gonna crib that text. We're gonna add it to the menu next. This will work. Good stuff. All right, a little bit of tea. Now I'm going to have to delete two models. I want to delete the model itself. That's what I did last time. I removed it from models.py. I don't have it in admin reviews. I'll double check that. I don't have it in Wagtail hooks real quick. Which I do. So this is gonna make this go away. There we go. Refresh. And we'll add that back. Move an app. Remove the remnant content types. So it's really just this C model. Huh, that's pretty handy. Okay. So let's see what that looks like if I just execute this code. And the shell specifically this. Of course. Let's see what that looks like firstly. And this iterable So it'll be this and this. There was something else I wanted to clean up also. All right, I think I can do this real quick. Swap over your models. Check my commits. There's nothing I want to commit right now. This is where things start to break, but all right. So this is what I don't freaking get. How do I run the shell? I'm using south. Dude, dang it. Yeah, because this gets all sorts of freaking... I'll tell you what. Here's what I did last time. Normally I'd, consider using something from 2014 in Django. It doesn't get that out of date. But they did have particularly with model migrations, that did become part of core. I don't know, a couple years ago. Which I think they took south in. But things have changed, so yeah. I'm just gonna, this is kind of kludgy, but it gets rid of it. Then I also want to say that needs to go. And really these are gonna go out, and eventually I'll move them to have their own index pages. Maybe. And next step. or just clean up. And this will not work anymore. So I have to get rid of these. Which is really nice. Now we have just the stream field. I'm gonna clean this up as well. No unused imports. It's strange. Cool, now we got our models migrated. So let's go ahead and take a little bit of time. I still have no idea how to efficiently remove Django models. If anybody has a comment on that, I would like to not have to do that. Not fields, everything's about fields. I want to remove the whole model. I think if I squash things and I restart the, this is a prototype, so I can be a little bit more sloppy with the way I handle the models and migrations, but in production I wouldn't want to just squash everything and delete data and stuff like that. But I'll probably end up just resetting the migrations. Good. So we're running. This is probably going to be handy though. Oh wait, what the heck? So I'm just going to take a look at how I did this contacts menu and add the resources back in there. It's in the Wagtail hooks, but under the contact. And it's essentially, you define model admin for each model, and then you add an admin group. And I don't have to worry about this JavaScript, but you can also run JavaScript on editing forms. You can override the editing form templates. It's really flexible when you get into it. So I'm just going to grab 2 of these because we have just 2 of them to work with. It's in Wagtail hooks. I can close this out. Close that. And we'll see how many. I'll need that. I have to import the model. Import. We're going to import online worship and community directory in alphabetical order though. think they can have the same. Let's see, what was that? The group, actually, that might be cool. And the online worship home, that actually might be cool too. Got some pagination. Let's see if there's a nice icon. That one's pretty good. That could be cool. Actually, this is probably the good one. Alright, there's the copy and pasting catching up with me a little bit. There we go. So now I can refresh this page essentially. And yeah, it's just a little bit too big. But there we are. We have our sub menu, and the text will wrap. This should be 300. And refresh that. Ah, it jumps all the way down there. Alright, well, in any case. And if I go community directories, T. So that one worked. T. This is strange. What did I do wrong? That's that. Community models. Community directory. Icon group. Maybe make sure I've added some content there, but that's really strange. Yeah, I have, in fact, added some content. Oh, you know what? This is really subtle. Oh my goodness. We're missing a comma. So this tuple somehow is getting flattened to a string. That's trippy. I don't know how you would figure that out just by having encountered something crap like that in the past. I guess it's just a good habit if you have single item tuples to always have a trailing comma. For that matter, maybe even arrays? I don't know. What? Good grief. Kind of gets noisy after a while, but seems to work. And you add line, online workshop, boom. No hierarchy, just takes you right there to the form. Good. Yeah, I'll leave those commas in, that's fine. Resources. Community directories. Alright, well, it's been almost an hour and a half, so let's go ahead and commit these. What did I do here? So, oh, what's this? Yeah, it's a little bit of lint. Heck, this could just be called resources group now. I'll leave it alone though. Okay, it's a pretty good stopping point too, I think. I set up more or less to achieve what I wanted to. Let me double check from the front end, make sure I don't have any loose ends. So the community page now has been ported over. Everything is, the whole body field is just a stream field. There is one loose end. Quick nonprofit organizations. I believe I will pick that up later if I haven't already done this. I'll have to see. I'll check it now. Because we can add organizations, and I have a couple of those. So that's good. I have this page, okay. And it's so all I have to do is go back here to community, edit this page, and add to the second row, right? Quick organizations, online worship, and friends everywhere. We can call that whatever we want. I'll pick this quicker organizations page and put some text there. Now the cool thing about Wagtail is it gives you this nice little way of reorganizing them. They may soon have a drag and drop interface here, but other than that, it's not too bad. There we go, we got our grid back. Just closing this tab out, close that. So yeah, we're getting feature parity, and it's a completely generic interface now. You can the content editor can just find arbitrary cards with any kind of text, images. So we've got this repeating card. Can go left or right leaning image with some intro text, optional call to actions. So this whole page can now be reconstructed and edited directly through the Wagtail UI. No hard-coded templates. Boom, we got away from that. So that was what we set out to do. On the way, we've discovered a few more optimizations we can make with the content model, constraining, so everything doesn't land right here under the community page, and that starts to get really cluttered. But we'll have a little bit more, so to speak, be a little more regimented or a little bit more structured with the way we organize that. in the future. We got our flyout menu with 2 kinds of resources, and with these you can add, you know, more resource types. You can add other content types, contact types, things like that. So it's a very flexible design pattern. All right, well, thank you for everyone who tuned in to the live stream today. It's always nice to have people hanging out in the live stream while we're doing this coding. If you are watching this on YouTube, feel free to give me a question or comment, and I'll try to respond as quickly as possible. All right, thank you all for viewing this video, this live coding series on creating a website from scratch with Python, Django, and Wagtail CMS. Have a great day.